This is the level Paris in Hitman World of Assassination. 1 second. This is Underwear Guy. Underwear Guy hangs out in this locker room, failing to read the room as this woman cries.
What's wrong with her?
And he never puts on his clothes and gets to work. None of the people in this room have anything to do with the plot of Hitman, which in this chapter tasks you with killing two very important and interesting people, Dalia Margolis and Viktor Novikov. But these people are only your targets in story mode. In Freelancer mode, you play the same levels as story mode, such as this one, but now your targets have been chosen at random. This means that despite all the environmental cues that tell us that Viktor Novikov and Dalia Margolis are the most important people in the building, in order to make any sense of this game mode, we have to imagine that the real people pulling the strings are, say, this bartender, or this random sound guy. One time, I entered Paris in Freelancer mode, and my target was none other than Underwear Guy himself. Not wanting to kill Underwear Guy in front of his peers, I shot him with the Psyker dart gun to get him nauseous. My plan was to follow him as he found a bathroom to vomit in and then drown him in the toilet. If you've played Hitman before, you understand that I'm not a psychopath and that this is in fact the most logical way to kill a human being. Underwear Guy wandered into a restroom near the stage of the Sanguine fashion show, making a fashion statement of his own along the way. I followed him into the bathroom only to find a hair and makeup stylist sleeping in the corner. He woke up and said to me,
You want to move away arm's length, buddy?
I had to respect this man's audacity, sleeping in the corner of a public restroom and somehow making that my problem. But even as Underwear Guy started throwing up in the toilet, I could not get this man to leave. So I said, screw it. I'll shoot them both in the head with my silenced pistol and take the penalty for one dead civilian. But just as I do the deed, this woman shows up and quickly has to process the mayhem that this single occupancy restroom contains. 3 men, 2 of them are dead, 1 of them is in his underwear, a toilet full of vomit, blood everywhere, in the center of it all, a man holding a gun. Panicked, she goes to the nearest guard. You know where the nearest guard was? Right outside the fucking bathroom, that's right. I should mention, by the way, that I'm playing on hardcore difficulty right now, where guards have heightened awareness and shoot very in the head. The guard looked through the doorway and locked eyes with me. Surely, I was gonna die. But then, through some momentary lapse of reason, the guard did a 180 and started searching for the perpetrator in the opposite direction of the bathroom. Why? I don't know. Maybe because I was dressed as one of his superiors? Maybe he forgot to take his Adderall. I really have no idea. And then I just walked out of there and got away with the crime. Mission successful. Roll credits. Hitman Freelancer is the newest game mode added to Hitman World of Assassination and sees the formerly casual fashion-based puzzle game get transformed into a high-stakes roguelike stealth game? What the fuck? Roguelike games. Do I even need to explain what roguelike games are? I mean, if you're watching this, you probably already know what roguelike games are, but if you don't, I should probably explain it, but really quickly so as to not bore the people that already know. Luckily, I happen to have spent several weeks in Berlin concocting the most concise definition of a roguelike possible for this exact circumstance. Roguelike games are games that are like Rogue. I feel like I want a different experience out of my roguelikes than most people. I'm not gonna lie, most of y'all are mentally ill. You're either in love with the grind and dying repeatedly, or you basically have a gambling problem and are addicted to randomly generated numbers. I could probably make you come just by going, me? I'm above that goo goo gaga iPad baby shit. I play roguelikes for the story. The story, you ask? Bewildered. Look, I'm not talking about the kind of story that's created by a team of incredibly talented writers. While I do love a beautifully crafted story in a video game every now and then, my favorite stories from games have always been the ones that are entirely unscripted. Unscripted stories are, for lack of better words, that good shit. Like, fuck the relationship between Kratos and his son. Let's write the relationship between underwear guy and this toilet right now. You know what I'm saying? Roguelikes are the perfect fit for these kinds of unscripted stories. Permadeath guarantees high stakes, and randomization offers endless setups from which stories can blossom. The final ingredient necessary for a good story generator is a deep system of interacting mechanics between the player, the NPCs, and the environment, which is something that Hitman already conveniently had before Freelancer mode was added. I wasn't alive during the 80s, but from what I gather, these kinds of emergent narratives, as they're so called, were one of the main selling points of early roguelike games, aka games that are really like Rogue, for instance, Rogue. I find it disappointing that most modern roguelikes, at least most of the ones that I've played, have totally abandoned emergent narrative. Their interacting systems are limited to the ways that your own abilities can interact with each other, rather than how your abilities can interact with the environment or how the environment can interact with itself, but I digress. Hitman's interacting systems make it a perfect fit for the kind of roguelike that I'm interested in, and at its best, Freelancer is amazing. Not only is it full of the emergent narratives that I crave, it's just very open-ended. Even as someone who loves Hitman story missions, I have to admit that going from Freelancer back to story mode can feel weirdly restrictive. Hitman's story missions are notoriously replayable, but you're always going to be killing the same people, and if you kill anybody else, you get a bad Yelp review. This generally results in certain areas being the actual designated spots for being a hitman, while all the other areas are just for hitting a man. But in Freelancer mode, the randomized targets have me approaching these levels from totally new angles, and the fact that you're not penalized for killing guards has me applying lethal force in locations I can only dream of. I also have to praise Freelancer for introducing Syndicate Showdown missions, where you don't even know who the target is and you have to figure it out like you're playing Clue. It was Colonel Mustard, in the bathroom, with the gun. By me. There's truly so much to like here, and that's why it really pains me that I'm gonna shit on this game mode for most of this video, as my title and thumbnail would imply. Unfortunately, the truth is that for every Oscar-worthy experience I've had like this playing Freelancer, I've had one other experience that bored me to the point of exhaustion, and another experience that made me so frustrated I could unsilenced pistol kill epic my own TV in real life. Now let me be very clear, IOI have spoiled us. Hitman World of Ass is essentially 3 games in one, and I got it on sale. So for them to add an entirely new game mode for free in the form of Freelancer is totally unnecessary, but nonetheless appreciated. So don't let this video dissuade you from buying this game if you haven't already. Hitman's story missions are incredible, and every man, woman, and child should experience them. But before you start story mode, I am begging you to disable the setting called Mission Story Guidance, otherwise the game is basically ruined in my opinion. But this isn't a video about Hitman's story mode. This video is exclusively about Hitman's Freelancer mode, and also Spelunky. So without further ado, let's get into my first issue with Freelancer. Here are the roguelikes that I have played. Sorry if your favorite roguelike isn't on here, I'm just some guy. In all of these games, the things that you acquire can be split into 2 categories. Lose only, which are things that you lose between every run of the game, and keep only, which are things that you get to keep between every run of the game. Permanent progress despite death, in other words. In Hitman Freelancer, the keep-only category is mostly just for cosmetic things, but there are some legitimately useful things here in the keep-only category, like permanently unlocking more inventory space, and also, let's not forget, free bananas for life, which you unlock as soon as Diana lets you move out of the basement. What's weird about Freelancer is it actually has a 3rd category that falls in between these 2 categories. I call this 3rd category Loseable Keepables, and I made a note here to come up with a better name for this, and I never did, so we're gonna roll with that. Loseable Keepables are items that you can keep from run to run, but you can also lose them during any run. Freelancer takes almost everything that would be lose only in most roguelikes, such as the items you get during runs and the money you get to buy these items, and it puts them into this 3rd category. For instance, weapons you buy are kept between runs via the weapon wall, but bring any weapon into a mission and fail and you will lose that weapon. Merces, the currency of this game, are kept when you complete a run, and when you fail a run, they are halved but not taken away entirely. Even the Freelancer tools, which, yeah, they all go away when you fail, but they still fall into the category of Loseable Keepables because when you complete a run, you get to keep them. Truly the only thing in Freelancer that is lose only is your campaign progress, or in other words, your run progress. Freelancer uses the term campaign to refer to a run, but I'm gonna use these two interchangeably for the rest of this video. Uh-oh, I can already tell I'm losing you. On paper, it's more forgiving to take things that would normally be lose only and put them into this third category where you at least have a chance to keep them when you fail. But then why is it that when I die in Freelancer, I want to die IRL? To understand why, let's compare this to Spelunky, a roguelike where virtually everything is lose only. Die in Spelunky and you lose all your gold, your items, and the kids. Win in Spelunky and you die of old age. But not before hearing this fucking sick saxophone solo. Spelunky is technically more punishing than Freelancer if you want to look at it this way, but whenever I die in Spelunky, I just kinda, I'm pissed, but then I'm like, whatever, and I just go back to starting up another run and I'm just sacrificing dogs to the goddess of blood within 5 minutes and stuff like that. See, the big silver lining with losing everything all the time is that failure can never take you further back than you were before you started the run. With 0 gold, 4 bombs, 4 ropes, and a dream. You can never lose more progress than that. On the other hand, in Hitman Freelancer, I not only have to worry about losing items I earned in the run I'm currently playing, but I also have to worry about losing items I earned in the run before that, and the run before that, and so on. In fact, if I were to fail over and over again, I could technically lose every single item I've earned since the first time I ever started playing the game, which probably wouldn't happen unless I was like blackout drunk, but I should be able to get blackout drunk and play video games like our founding fathers intended. Loseable Keepables are just permanent enough for me to get attached to them, but not permanent enough to, be permanent. The weapons in Freelancer are not cheap either. You often have to play several missions just to be able to afford one of them. That's potentially hours of gameplay that you could lose in one instant just because you shot the wrong flamingo in the dick. Hot take. I think failure in games should be fun. Smoking hot take. I think failure in Spelunky is fun. Sure, it's kind of a rage game, but this game is way too slapstick for me to be legitimately angry when I die. If you couldn't tell, by the way, I really like Spelunky. However, in Freelancer, it doesn't matter if I die in the silly billiest way possible. If I end up with less items than I started the run with, I'm not gonna laugh. I'm not alone in this. You know it's bad when most players force quit the app to avoid failure and even consider this to be part of the game. For every mission in Freelancer, you get a handful of optional objectives called payout objectives that you can complete for extra cash. Or more accurately, most of your cash, since apparently being the most highly trained assassin in the world doesn't pay that well and you have to sustain yourself on tips from weirdos who like it when their targets slip on banana peels and shit. For each mission, one of your payout objectives will be a so-called prestige objective, which you get to select from a list of 3, and these pay the most. In hardcore mode, the prestige objective is mandatory. If payout objectives didn't exist, you would probably just resort to your 2 favorite murder strategies over and over again. But if the game goes, hey, here's an extra reward for shooting multiple flamingo dicks with 1 bullet or whatever, you end up stepping out of your comfort zone as a player, and as a result you end up in really weird situations. Since this is so great for emergent narratives, I would argue that payout objectives are the heart and soul of Freelancer. You are incentivized to complete payout objectives for merces. What are merces for? Well, for one, merces can be used to purchase Freelancer tools. However, most tools are pretty cheap, and you get 1 free one for every mission you complete, so you won't have to complete that many missions to be able to afford more tools than you can reasonably carry. So what's left to spend merces on? Weapons. Weapons are much more expensive than Freelancer tools, so most of your merces end up getting spent on these. The truth is that most weapons are not actually very useful for completing a campaign. Big guns are inconvenient, loud guns are just worse than silenced guns. Every map is also littered with free melee weapons that satisfy all the conditions of a perfect melee weapon. Concealable, unbreakable, and universally legal. This means buying melee weapons isn't necessary either, although it's quite charming to receive one as a gift.
Congratulations, 47. You brought down the Syndicate and its leader. Please accept a token of gratitude for outstanding excellence.
Actually useful weapons include a concealable silenced gun, ideally an accurate one, and a silenced sniper rifle. All other weapons are pretty much garbage unless you have nothing better or you need them to complete a weapon-specific payout objective. So let's think this through. Once you have a handful of good tools and 2 useful guns, the only reason to get extra weapons is to beat payout objectives, and the only reason to beat payout objectives is to get merces, and the only reason to get merces is to get extra weapons, and now we have a whole gameplay loop that is entirely disconnected from what I feel like should be the goal of Freelancer, which is to beat a campaign. And speaking of that, beating a campaign in Freelancer is astonishingly anticlimactic. There's no fanfare, no saxophone solo, not even a flute or a didgeridoo. You take down an entire global network of syndicates or whatever single-handedly, and Diana Burnwood goes, "Wow, haha, that's crazy," and you get 1 legendary weapon and 30,000 merces, which again will mainly be used on weapons. If it's your first time beating a campaign in regular mode, you'll also unlock hardcore mode. Something I find really bizarre about hardcore mode is that the game basically goes out of its way to discourage you from playing it. For one, failing in hardcore mode gets rid of all of your merces, as opposed to just the half that would be taken away if you failed in regular mode. It also just so happens that the first time you unlock hardcore mode, you are more likely to have more merces than you've ever had while playing this game because you just got 30,000 for completing a campaign, so starting a campaign in hardcore mode, which I might add is much more difficult than regular mode, is a great way to immediately lose all of that money. Furthermore, hardcore doesn't get its own safe room with its own weapon wall. You have to use the weapons and items that you've earned in regular mode, and you can now lose them even more easily that the game is harder now. By playing hardcore, you are pretty much agreeing to losing a lot of your weapon collection by dying repeatedly, and you will have to probably go back to regular mode to grind to get those weapons back. In addition, when you start a hardcore campaign, Diana will borrow your tools to build a treehouse for girls' night and then lose them. Typical. Hardcore mode is a nightmare. I don't want to go into too much detail here, but just imagine that pretty much every issue I have with Freelancer gets exacerbated when the difficulty gets turned up. When I played hardcore mode, I got more frustrated than I've ever been playing a video game, and that is not an exaggeration. It's far from the hardest game I've played, but one simple loss would make me age 5 years and I'd wake up in a dumpster behind a Foster's freeze. So naturally, I switched back to regular mode, but I've already beaten regular mode, so what does it prove if I beat it again, exactly? Why am I here? But then it occurred to me, the goal of Freelancer isn't to complete campaigns. It's to collect meaningless stuff. Everything points to this, from the weapons that last between campaigns but don't actually help you beat them, to the anticlimactic result of actually beating a campaign, to the game discouraging you from playing hardcore mode. It all results in the end goal of Freelancer being to fill out the weapon wall, which is an excruciatingly long grind that will take many campaigns to actually beat, and the whole time it's much easier to lose progress than it is to gain it. When I beat regular mode for the 2nd or 3rd time, Diana Burnwood said,
Good work, 47. You've managed to complete the campaign. However, more syndicates are starting up. I know this can seem like the Sisyphus myth, so take a break.
So they know. But you might say, hey, who cares? Games are not about the destination. Games, much like life, and Life the Game, and Conway's Game of Life, are about the journey. If the moment-to-moment gameplay of Freelancer is fun and dynamic, how could you complain? Well, first of all, you're not even real. I made you up as a rhetorical device. But secondly, your argument hinges on the moment-to-moment gameplay of Freelancer being fun. But In my experience, I have found Freelancer's moment-to-moment gameplay to be mostly boring because it does not encourage me to take risks, and I firmly believe that this is Freelancer's most fundamental problem. Sid Meier is credited with creating Civilization, which I think we can all agree was a bad move because this led to the invention of video games. Sid Meier once said, "When given the opportunity, players will optimize the fun out of a game." Basically, players tend to choose the most effective option, even if it's the most boring. Now, when I play video games, this doesn't really apply to me personally because I'm fun, quirky, sexy, and I like to party. Why the fuck did I write that? But roguelikes are games where failing has a large consequence, and if there is a large consequence for failure, I naturally will do anything in my power to avoid that failure. And in the case of Hitman Freelancer, that means being significantly less sexy and being significantly less willing to party. Again and again, I am presented with the choice between a risky option and a much slower, safe option, and 99% of the time, it's in my survival interest to take the slow option. What has the greater chance of keeping me alive? A, slipping through a heavily guarded hostile territory to get to a nearby exit, or B, running for several minutes to get to an exit on the other side of the map where there aren't any bad guys around? It's B. What's the more fun option? It's A. Here's another one. Let's say you just missed your opportunity to snipe your target from a distance. Do you A, get off of your sniper tower, go follow the target and improvise a new way to kill them, or B, wait in the sniper tower for the target to get through their entire walk cycle again just so you can line up the shot again? What's safer? It's B. What's more fun? It's A. Let's just say you killed a target with a loud explosion. Do you A, run away and hope that no one sees you, or B, hiding in a box, hiding in a box, hiding in a motherfucking box? Why is this mechanic in the fucking game? Why do we have to fucking do this? On a very related note to all of this, the most fun prestige objectives are the ones with the time element, because you actually have to take the A option to avoid running out the timer. Without an in-game timer, the only reason to take risks is to save my own time in real life, and if I cared about my time in real life, I wouldn't be making a 30-minute video essay about Hitman Freelancer. My favorite time-based prestige objective is the silent takedown prestige objective, which gives you more time every time you knock someone out. Anyone. This objective is wild, you guys. The whole game should be like this. Maybe all games should be like this, but the time-based prestige objectives are some of the hardest prestige objectives in the game, so choosing them in the first place is borderline suicidal, and like, especially if I'm playing hardcore mode, like, why would I take that risk? I can't be the only person who plays Freelancer like a total coward. I mean, I try to have fun sometimes, but there's no worse feeling than trying to have fun for just a second, and then the game kills you, and then you have to just live with the fact that you probably wouldn't have died if you had just done something more boring. It's like being punished for having fun.
Did I just catch you having fun?
So I end up spending a lot of time finding option B, where there's virtually no chance of anything going wrong, which is a shame because this game is actually the most fun when things end up going just a little wrong. Choosing option B over and over again adds up, and the time that I spend on missions can get exhausting. The lengths of these missions and the frustration of losing reinforce each other. The longer I spend on missions, the more frustrating it is to lose that time if I fail, and the more frustrating failure is, the safer I will play, and the longer I spend on missions, and the vicious cycle repeats, and no amount of therapy can fix this. So let's try to fix Freelancer's problems, and by let's, I mean me, and by Freelancer's problems, I mean the issues that I perceive with Freelancer, which are likely just a result of my upbringing. But before we continue, some disclaimers are in order. Disclaimer 1. This exercise is mostly for fun. Making radical changes to Freelancer this late in its lifespan would probably just alienate the people that have already made a lot of progress in the game mode in its current form, so IOA is probably not going to do that. Disclaimer 2. I am not a developer. Again, I am just some guy. Although there was a phase in my life where I tried to develop video games, my greatest accomplishment in that field was spending a whole month making a game that was basically just Tetris except not fun, and I never showed it to anybody, and I'm not even showing it to you right now. This is just Tetris with the PNG of a Goomba pasted on top of it, and you probably thought it was a totally different game, but that's the magic of editing. Disclaimer 3. We can't test any of my ideas. Testing is kind of a big deal in game development. It's kind of like how I didn't realize that my Tetris game wasn't going to be fun until I got it working after a month and actually sat down and played it. By the way, still not my game, I just rotated the Goomba. With all of that out of the way, in my opinion, the thing that could improve Freelancer more than anything else is if they added the ghost from Spelunky. Okay, I hope I got you there, but I'm actually totally serious. I mean, no, I don't think they should add an actual ghost to the completely serious game that is Hitman. Even if the ghost is hot, awooga, daddy-like. Anyways, what the Spelunky Ghost is essentially a soft time limit that makes the game significantly harder if you take too long. Spend too long in a Spelunky level and a ghost appears who, kind of like your mom, chases you relentlessly, can phase through walls, and will kill you if she touches you. Unlike a hard time limit, which will instantly fail you if the time runs out and can feel a bit too punishing, a soft time limit like the Ghost gives you the option to play slow, but turns playing slow into its own risk. The threat of the ghost appearing is enough to make you consider time as a factor in every decision, and with enough of this conditioning, you eventually become a master at making smart decisions and assessing risk at lightning speed. I don't know if something invincible chasing you around the level is thematically appropriate for Hitman, but I do feel like a soft time limit of some kind is necessary. Just something that makes the game significantly harder if you take too long. One idea I had is that some NPCs are actually sleeper agents, and then when the soft time limit runs out, you hear breakfast burrito, and they all wake up and essentially become assassins who are also universal enforcers of all outfits. The time limit itself probably doesn't need to even be that short. The point is not to force people to play like Doom Eternal, it's just to give you one reason to consider option A. For normal missions, I'm thinking something in the ballpark of 7 minutes per target, at least in the early missions. So in a 3-target mission, for example, you would get 21 minutes for the whole mission, which includes the amount of time it takes to crack the safe, find the supplier, pet the magical dog hidden in each level, and get to an exit. Once you get decent tools, you don't really need as much time per target, so maybe as the campaign progresses, the timer gets more strict to add something of a difficulty curve. The addition of a soft timer by itself makes this already difficult game more difficult and does nothing to address plenty of other issues I have with Freelancer, but I would honestly play the shit out of this version of the game even if nothing else was changed, just because I know I wouldn't be bored, but I think we can do better, so let's keep going. You might disagree, but I feel like the goal of the game should be to complete campaigns, and everything you strive to earn during a campaign should be for the purpose of completing that campaign. To make this the case, I think Loseable Keepables have got to go. I don't think you should keep any merces from run to run, and I don't think you should keep any weapons from run to run. If you can't keep weapons, you can't get attached. Now losing is less frustrating, and you can get drunk. I'm gonna call this version of the game Ben mode. My name is Ben, by the way. Please don't try to learn anything else about me. Now, turning all Loseable Keepables into lose-only items is actually a very big shift that completely disrupts the balance of the game. At a bare minimum, this would mean that every item in the game needs to have their price reevaluated, but bigger problems arise too. Like I've said before, payout objectives are the heart and soul of Freelancer, so it's imperative that in Ben mode, completing payout objectives is still worth it. And for payout objectives to be worth it, merces need to be worth it. The main incentive for getting merces used to be expanding your weapon collection, but since you can't keep any weapons from run to run anymore, merces are only going to be worth it if there are a lot of things to buy throughout the run that legitimately help you survive and complete the campaign. Weapons don't fill this role very well because you only need a couple non-dog shit ones to actually complete a campaign. To get the player to actually buy more weapons, perhaps a system could be implemented where the player has to buy a few bad weapons to get access to better ones. Also, all perfect melee weapons should be just removed from the maps. This way, buying melee weapons like the circumcision knife can actually help you survive rather than just help with the circumcision-based challenges or whatever. I think that squeezes just about all the value we can out of the weapons, so let's move on to the tools. The Psyker is the most busted item in the game, but that's actually a good thing because we could just slap a really high price tag on it and it becomes great incentive for the player to complete objectives for merces. Again, the more useful stuff there is to buy throughout a campaign, the better, but tools become less useful when you already have more than you can carry into a mission. For this reason, I think inventory size should be lose only. Start small and expand up to a very high maximum throughout the run via the completion of payout objectives. This gives the player yet another reason to complete payout objectives and also lets the player go full Inspector Gadget for late game missions, utilizing every single item they've bought. If there's still somehow not enough incentive to complete payout objectives, then maybe new tools could be added to Ben mode, like a smoke bomb, or an adrenaline shot that makes Agent 47 fucking run faster once in his goddamn life, or I don't know, maybe banana should be a Freelancer tool that you have to buy, because right now you just get them for free when Diana goes grocery shopping, but maybe they're really useful and cool, and I'm tired of walking up the fucking stairs to grab them. And if we already have the Psyker and the Calmer, why not add a lethal dart gun too and call it the fucker or something? Sure, we're slowly turning Agent 47 into the Doomslayer, but you could just compensate by making the later levels crazy hard, like whatever, just put 8 targets in one level with only 2 minutes per target. Fuck it, I guess we are playing Doom Eternal now. Okay, I'm getting very carried away with these micro details, and I have no way of testing them anyways. The fucker is not the point of this video, okay? Don't lose the big picture. The real takeaway here is that Ben mode would have a soft time limit of some kind, an item system without Loseable Keepables, and every balance change necessary to make that version of the game work, whatever they are. Oh yeah, and when you beat a campaign in Ben mode, Diana hits the didgeridoo and busts it down sexual style, and that's not even up for debate. Take it or leave it. Anyways, to wrap things up, I just wanted to say I would not be making this video if I didn't think that Hitman Freelancer was in many ways very fucking cool. It's really cool to see a game studio essentially remix their game into something wildly different, taking levels and mechanics that were designed for one kind of experience and reusing them for a totally different kind of experience, not because it is realistic or even makes sense in the game's universe, but purely because it could be fun. That's actually awesome. I would love to see more AAA games take themselves a little less seriously and try stupid bullshit like this. And again, it's also lovely to see another roguelike with systems that generate emergent narratives when most modern roguelikes I've played don't really do that. Hitman Freelancer is so close, yet so painfully far from being one of my favorite games of all time. Most of my experiences with this game mode have been boring, if not agonizingly frustrating, while on the other hand, my favorite moments from this game mode have been unscripted stories of compelling drama and euphoric comedy. But even these great moments leave a bittersweet taste in my mouth because they demonstrate to me that Hitman as a roguelike has so much potential that Freelancer just fails to reach most of the time. I'm glad to see that so many people are enjoying this game mode. Personally, I want to love Hitman Freelancer, but I can't.